Hello, my name is Frances Fox, and I'm a trained government remote viewer. I specialize also in interspecies communication. All the psychic abilities have been trained in me and watched and honed and statistically analyzed, etc. Superpowers. I was in a secret military program, a continuation of a Nazi program um, in Europe after the Second World War, US government. And I chose all of that in order to be able to deliver the information I'm delivering today, which most people cannot reach this level of psychic abilities unless they have been through incredible training. And as I said the other day, and people were in shock, the easiest way to get somebody to augment their psychic abilities is to sexually abuse them. And if it can include a level of shock and horror, then the deeper into other dimensions the person will go mentally and emotionally in order to escape what's happening on the physical dimension. And I'm going to talk in a few minutes about Satanism because that's going to come up very heavy, having to do with, I believe, the Epstein list. That the reason it's not, this is my thought. I haven't looked at it, and I swear I have not looked at why it has not been released. But I have this feeling it's going to connect a lot of people to Satanism. Oh my God. Well, maybe that's one of the reasons why my job is to teach you about white magic, because the whole Satanism thing is simply the black magic taken to the max. And it is so horrifying. Anyway, I decided to try to get a different background. I was a little bit tired of the same thing, but it does weird stuff. And I'm sure maybe somebody can tell me if I make an adjustment, if it won't have all those movements, but whatever. Yoda does have the ability to get his nails done. Look, his nails are done. Not very well, but they're done. They have fingernail polish. They're shiny. I can't get out of my home. So maybe I'll start with that first. And you'll get bored with this, but that's okay. Because until the weaponized part of the intelligence community gets under control and all of the people that they trained to go against normal, regular people, until that gets under control, the streets are not really safe for me and people like me. So I have unusual movement in my parking lot. Actually, a person that I think is not really a friend is in my parking space. I have two parking spaces. This is the second one. Nobody ever parks there. This is a closed community. He is in that space, and there's plenty of spaces around. It's almost like saying, "We're here, and you're not going to get away from us." Then I had a dream that somebody put a ladder in the, and I think I said this the other day. Maybe I didn't. In the home next door, in their patio, which is next to my patio, to be able to get into my patio. When I mentioned it to somebody, their head exploded. I said, you need to be careful. I'm just letting you know. I'm sure that, and oh no, everything's fine. And then their head exploded. I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't get a mini stroke with how upset they were, but there's nothing to be upset about unless they know something. And today, I had to deal with some banking things with a wire transfer with my bank. So I said, about a year and a half ago, my Montrista group, because I was having weird things happen with Bank of America and Wells Fargo, they were doing fraudulent things because the Cuban mafia, Miami is their playground. They do whatever they want. Doesn't matter if it's a bank, if it's a church, it doesn't matter. They're in control. And they have been for 60 years. So my group had identified that the people at the bank were stealing and that they were all part of this whole thing. And it was like unbelievable. A lot of people saying the same thing. And a lot of them are really good psychics. So, okay, but then nothing happened. And of course, bad people look normal. They behave normal. So today I'm dealing with some stuff at the bank. I was not there, it was over the phone. I decided to ask the person I was dealing with if she knew my handler, and I used his name. Oh no, I don't know who that is. Oh, okay, fine. And then when we hung up, this is what her head looks like. She exploded. Now, to get this level of explosion, you have to be almost stroke level. If you get angry, this will get red, this will get red, you'll get some red here. But this, not only did a nerve get touched, but a lot of fear, rage. This is my bank. It's such a nice bank. They're such nice people. So I think we're at the end, and I think very soon all of this is going to get resolved. But I have to tell you that right now, I do not feel even minimally safe or secure. And the people that are watching me, which sometimes I can hear their thoughts, too many times I can hear their thoughts. Now I can hear Spanish. How many times have I said, if you're going to take care of me, do not put Cubans in charge of taking care of me? What are you, crazy? And I think somebody's not paying attention. Okay. Some of the stuff that they say is not so kind. Anyway, next, let's go to the map. With everything that's going on, and with my two people I admire, Trump and Elon, not in a good place, but let's look at the map. And maybe people are going to be totally acting out. They're going to be losing it. If they were hanging on by their fingertips, tips or by a thread, they're going to lose it now. The energies in terms of the solar geomagnetic storms, the Schumann resonance changing, it's an incredible shakeup. If you are not real in control of you, if you're not real focused, and if your intentions are not guiding you in a direction, that vector that Elon Musk talks about, you are going to be knocked to the side. So the map is this. That thing above the United States is a huge spirit that right now is basically controlling Canada. We have not sketched that before. What we had sketched was the frequency, those wavy lines, red. In the United States, they were all green. But in Canada, they were always red. And I said, that's not a good thing. To have red is fire. To have too much fire puts you next to war, mental illness, rage, fighting, but basically the ultimate mental illness, war. Okay, drop down to the United States. You still have the wavy green lines, but you have a major one that's in red. But we have a lot of decisions that are now playing out on a national level, one of which apparently has Elon extremely upset. So they put out, I don't know, indictments for I don't know how many hundreds of people having to do with insurance fraud. And the stuff that's coming out, basically, there's no place to hide for the people that thought they could get away with murder. So they committed a lot of murders. So that wavy line, that rage, which is very large, if there's not some self-correcting going, and I'm getting together with my group at 8, and we'll do the whole water, glaciers, cooling down, so that everybody can have their opinion, they can have their anger, they can have their fights, but it doesn't go to where it's murder, war, or suicide. So that's not looking good. We do still have one of the Merkabas from the Galactic Protection. That's good. Florida, black magic. As I've told you, Florida represents helpful friends in the United States. And we have Elon very upset at Trump. Okay, there's an ideological difference, huge, but they both have different jobs. And I have got to say that if I broke my back, lost 50% of my net worth in order to save this country money, and then there's a bill that's going to be passed that's going to raise whatever by how many trillions, I think I would be upset also. But I don't know the details. But the volume of anger, of reaction, has to do with all this fire. And that's not good, because what happens is that people change with too much fire. That's Chinese and Ayurvedic medicine. If you are out of balance of the elements and you have too much fire, you're on your way to mental illness. That's the problem with our children and our grandkids, all the radiating devices. Remind me to talk about salt rooms, because I think Elon, let me just say it right now, Elon, install salt rooms in all of your properties, all of your factories, all of your places. Have the lunchroom be there, have the break room be there, and you sleep at night inside a salt room, and you will put out a lot of the fire of the radiation of all the electronics. Okay? But we'll get into more of that. Gulf of America, you still have the Mayan pyramids. They're not green, they're blue. I don't know what that means. And they're still very grounded. But all this stuff I'm talking about basically happened today, yesterday, today. So we have an incoming wave that could overwhelm the good stuff that's happening in the United States. People have to be able to have their differences. Elon is coming from a different place than Trump, and everybody's coming from a different place. It's the level of the reaction that's the issue. It's because there's so much fire, you can go into a violence, an emotional violence, and at which time your ability to think clearly or to hold on to your intentions is very weak. So if we get the fire down, everybody can just go ahead and have all their opinions and do all their arguing, and later on at the end, we'll figure out who was right, who wasn't right, maybe whatever. The important thing and what it is I deal with is trying to keep everything healthy and happy. And the easiest and shortest way is to deal with the elements, whether it's in your home or not. We're putting up on X and on all my social media hours of our sensory therapy music videos with water, 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 water. Today we had like 50 people watching on X. That for us is incredibly high number, because there is somebody whose full-time job is to keep me down at X. And I know it's not Elon. And I know it's not time yet for me to really lift my head. So I just have to breathe and accept it. Within a couple of weeks, that should change. These enemies are really creative. And I wasn't going to say it. I'm going to say it tomorrow. We really don't have time for that today. So let's go into gossip. Adam Schiff, I think that's under control. I think. My handler is still very active, but he's not with the same rage. The other person, whose initials are JC and last name starts with a G, he has completely fallen apart at the seams and is in a corner crying. So let me tell you what it is that I found out. Years ago, I asked a friend of mine. I remember he was visiting, and we were both tired. He was laying on that sofa, I was laying on this sofa, and all of a sudden I jumped up and I went, "Where does goodness come in humans? Where is it?" And he said, "Well, the heart." I said, "Okay, and where's evil in humans?" And he went, "Oh, I don't know." I said, "Because evil is not generated within humans. It's an outside force. And guess how it enters humans? Through a matrix implant in the back of the liver." Now, I've told you about that implant before, but little did I know that if you cut that cord, the person can collapse from the lack of the fire that comes in from Orion, which is what happened to this young man who's crying in a corner, who his marching orders was to get back into my life and take me down. He used to be a friend of mine years ago, and he's a robot. What a simple solution. And Jesus Christ on the cross tried to show us everything is a map. On the cross, Jesus had crown of thorns, not allowed to access your third eye, and it's a crown. It's not like a little band-aid. So it's like you're going to hurt yourself if you try to go for your third eye, which is wisdom and superpowers. So when the time that the Bible reigns, the 2,000 years since Jesus, those were the rules. And now is when we figure it out and we can take care of it. So I'm doing that with trying to teach about augmenting psychic abilities, intuitive knowing, instincts, whatever. And then he had a lance on his right side that pierced his liver. The liver is what handles temperature in the body, heat, cold. And it's the excess fire, heat, that's the big issue. So that matrix implant is in the back of the liver, and it goes all the way back to Orion, or from Orion comes into the back of our liver. Because too many of us today, our livers are hot from the radiation outside of us, which is heat, fire, and then our frustrations because we're in a collapse of a paradigm, collapse of hierarchy, change of a cycle. That we're all frustrated. Everything's changing. We don't have a grip on anything. We're frightened. We're insecure. And our reaction is frustration, anger, insomnia, and all the rest of that. So the liver, if you can cool it down by putting that piece of ice inside the liver in the back of the wall, you're going to be better. But that implant, basically everybody has it. It needs to be cut. And when you cut it, as this young man, if the person is only functioning because of the vitality of that fire from Orion, they collapse, which is a good thing if they're bad people. And if they have too much fire, they cannot remain good people. So that's a huge, huge, huge discovery. It's like the short path. Now, somebody has to cut them. I should be the only person on the planet to cut them, and then I can charge whatever I want. No. A lot of psychics can be trained to cut that. And you know how long it takes? Probably a minute and a half. Telling you, this whole medical thing, this old thing, this is like not good. It's slow boat to China. Sick every step of the way. They give you medication that makes you more sick. Then you got to heal from that. This new medical paradigm, which is not medical, this new paradigm that takes into consideration that we are multidimensional is like really, really beautiful. So I'm working on several people having to do with excess fire. When people have such a change so quickly, is something is going on. Something is going on. We see that when these kids start to shoot up, and then the people around them go, but he wasn't like that. And then you find some documentation or whatever. And yes, they could have been set up by an outside force, weaponized FBI, weaponized CIA, whatever. But what did they weaponize? They weaponized the fire in the person. See how important it is to understand the elements? If they didn't have that fire, it really wouldn't matter how much they tried to weaponize the person. They would have to get somebody that's like already not mainstream society and already everybody is identified as an issue. But if you get a regular person that's got an extreme amount of fire, you can weaponize it. And they end up doing stuff. And you say, how did that happen? Excess fire is also the cause of suicide, which has augmented dramatically. In this crazy country, you're not even able to discuss that. Do you know my Facebook page? You have to have a personal page. Okay, to have a business page. Okay, so I have a personal page. I don't pay any attention to it. But I had to pay attention to it because I could only get my messenger there, and I never look at those, but I had to today. No, the other day. So they had a little sticker saying, "Are you okay? You know, if you're thinking of killing yourself or doing yourself in, there are people that can help." What the hell is this doing on my page? Regular people can't talk about suicide. I don't talk about suicide. I'm not suicidal. I got too much great stuff going on in the middle of being very frightened. But I love my research and I love what I bring to the table and I love sharing it. And part of the whole thing with taking me down, which has been several years in the making, has been proving, apparently in court, which I never found out about until now, that I was really mentally ill. I needed to be picked up, put away. Obviously, I shouldn't be in charge of my money or anything that's supposed to be coming to me. Anyway, so Facebook had that up. Back to the fire. Salt rooms. There are salt rooms in every major city. They're not expensive. You go there for an hour. I don't know how much you pay, $50, $60, $40. I don't remember how much it is. Do not put on the headphones. That's electronics. That's fire. You go there with a rosary, Catholic, Buddhist, you do your mantras, or you do your breathing exercises, or you do your intentions, or you do your mantras, your intentions with your rosary, with your breathing exercises. And if you have kids that are hyperactive, those salt rooms are miraculous. If you have a kids that are autistic, those salt rooms are miraculous. Why? Because all of those kids have an extra fire. When you have excess fire, excess activity, hyperactivity, you are full of extra fire. You're not balanced. When I did all that work with autism, no, with ADD and autism, no, it was autism, ADD. The kids, an assistant did it because I'm too here and she was more big picture. She took the files and she said, "Did you notice that all of the kids that are ADHD, attention deficit hyperactive disordered, they're all fire signs?" And I went, "Wow. Well, that makes total sense. They have extra fire. So they're now ADD, but they're hyper." So it's so simple. It's just so foreign to us because we don't have a clue because we've never been taught that. But get yourself to a salt room and do it before and after. Before you walk in, measure your nervousness and your desire to cut everybody's head off, etc. And then when you come out, see how you feel. And it's a lasting effect. It's not going to last 2 months, but it's not like 5 minutes. Not like a meditation that if somebody comes and screams at you after a meditation, I don't really recommend meditations, but a lot of people like them. Somebody screams at you, it's gone. Most of it's gone. So, Salt Room, Elon, all of your companies where your spacecraft are built, every place, have your business meetings there. Get everybody's fire down so that their mind, by the way, the brain runs on, I don't know what the brain runs on, but the mind streams are 120 electricity. What happens when there's too much electricity? You get static. So in the brain, reduce with salt or stay at the beach, but you can't have a business meeting at the beach. But you can have a salt room. And when I move, I am going to build a salt room. They're several $1,000s. But for me, it is doable, and I wish it would be for you. Every neighborhood should have a salt room. Every gymnasium should have a salt room. The bad spirits don't want you to have that salt room. Remember that if it gets complicated. I love Tesla. I love Elon. I love Tesla. First one that was purchased and drove itself to the person's home. How much more neat can you get than that? And I'm getting used to it. And I'm not young. I'm getting used to that. I'm not technologically oriented. I don't like technology that much because I'm not that good. I'm actually bad. But that is so neat. That is really so neat. So I'll keep investing in Tesla. And by the way, geniuses, they have their personalities. Okay. I'm very concerned about the turn in this country having to do with Islam and Muslims, the hatred. I need to remind you that the white people in Europe in the Crusades went all the way over there to kill them. People in glass houses should not be throwing stones. Oh my God, look how they whipped that woman in the public square. And they let the men marry little girls. You're going to compare that to the level of sex trafficking and sex abuse and Satanism in this country? Can't compare, guys. You know what? We're in Revelations. It's all coming out. You cannot be pointing fingers. You may not like that. You may not want to have their laws over here. I agree with you. But I know what I went through. I was a courtesan's used as a sex slave, courtesan, and a prostitute in this very elegant country. Oh my God. So when you talk to me about child bride over there, that is nothing. And I wasn't the only person. In my program, supposedly there were 10,000 kids. There were several programs. So people in glass houses should not be throwing stones. And I think that's the reason why the Epstein list hasn't come out, because what's going to come out is so god awful, having to do with the whole Satanism thing. Tone it down, guys. Tone it down. There's too many people who have too much fire, and that kind of rhetoric weaponizes that fire. By the way, we had a great time with the Mantristas, with Venezuela. God left us a zillion maps. On the cross, he left us a map. Third eye, dangerous to go there. Liver, you better pay attention. I don't remember what other things. So I'm doing the astrology, and I already know what Trump's astrological is, and Elon and mine, and the dictator in Venezuela, and the new people coming in. And my God, the astrology was unbelievable, corresponding to what's going on behind the scenes. So this is what's going on. I had it, it's in English. So you can look at my horoscopes this week in English. He's a Sagittarius. So last week I saw him on a throne, a golden throne. And then this week he's up in the air and he's ready to go. The people around him, his group doesn't want him to go because I don't think they know where they're going to go. So we started, and then I started to look and I said, why is that man still there? He's making me look bad. I have worked for several years on Venezuela, and since the elections, because I don't get into politics, if they're supposed to be, and there was a duly elected president, and everybody's so frustrated, I gave them a mantra of the change of government being miraculously graceful. Same thing I did with the elections here, that the results be miraculously obvious and graceful. And what I saw was that Venezuelans are just too exhausted. They're not vitalizing their intention that this man leave. This has been almost a year. Meanwhile, he's got everybody around him, but him, he wants to be gone. And so what we saw when we were doing so what I said was, you know what, let's go ahead and vitalize our intention that the change of government be miraculously graceful. So we took out the word create and we put in the word vitalize. Wow, what a difference. Now, Venezuela is a country of mainly angelic consciousness. The United States is mixed. Cuba is mainly dolphin. Peru is mainly whale consciousness. And so angelics are not really good at fighting. So stuff goes on, and then they go, and then they feel defeated. Wow, they really took off. Everybody felt so much better. And then I could see that the dictator was telling the people around him, I'm leaving, and that image of him in that golden chair up in the air turning into a helicopter, he said to the people around him, go get your helicopter. Don't try to pull me back here. That was 2 nights ago, I think. Anyway, it felt very good. Now it's their job to vitalize that intention, because the bad guys don't take their eye off the ball, but the good guys do, and we are all too exhausted. So we are either too exhausted, or then we use that fire that's floating around, and it goes into us, and it goes off in the wrong direction against the kids, against enemies, against whatever. But it was really good. It was very heartening. And the people, and there's been several thousand since then, have felt very much better and are more focused on their intention, that there be a graceful shift of government. I don't get into politics. They elected a new government, and I was already working with them, having to do with the portal in the south of Venezuela that opened, and this you need to listen to, anybody into natural resources. There was a portal in 2018 in South Venezuela, huge, bigger than New York City, and it was opened due to repressed negative emotions of rage, which is toxic. That's basis for cancer and strokes, high blood pressure, due to the injustices that were done to the workers there. They used to kill off every worker, every person associated with the mines that did not have the ability to work the mines. grandmothers, grandfathers, men that broke a leg, kids, women that weren't strong enough. They didn't want to give him a plate of food, so they just kill him. Can you imagine? So that rage that they couldn't express opened a portal to hell. Anyway, that was the first work that my Mantrista movement did. That's what we first addressed. And what I've said now is, which is where the whole Yoda thing came in, um, the new administration, because I mean, the future is elastic and plastic, anything can happen. But the dictator does not want to be there. And he has only was held in place by the guys around him. And he basically said, get your helicopters. That was 2 nights ago. I have no idea what actually happened physically, but that's what was happening in the other dimensions. And I believe that he will be gone, and I believe it's not going to be a huge issue. And then we have to cool down the country, because then you have the people that supported him that are left there that are very angry because they're sure that the election was stolen. So then you have to cool down the country. So the whole thing ends up being balancing the elements, vitalizing intentions. I want to get into something. I got into the whole thing of we're going to take care of this sex issue, which is population collapse. I am not going to teach anybody about the act of sex. It's just not going to happen. I mean, why would I do that? What needs to happen is that people need, like I tell people, what's going to happen to me in the future? And I say, I'm not looking at that. Let's look at why you're not getting what you want. So it's going to be the same thing with the whole sex thing. Why are people not interested? You've got all these women with their boobs hanging out until tomorrow, all these people changing their gender. They never talk about sex. Well, that's all having to do with sex. The gender thing has to do with sex. The hanging out, which, okay, maybe, I don't know, maybe I shouldn't say that, but I'm saying it. Having to look sexy, but not having any sex. I mean, maybe the having to look sexy is a reaction to the fact that they're not having enough and they kind of have to look like, I don't know, but you know what? I don't care. The issue is that the population is collapsing. So I have a head that's very interesting. I'm going to do all sorts of things, but there's a part of me that's got that intention is, okay, so now I'm going to tell you a little thing and then we need to quit because I'm going on and on and on. I'm doing workshops, so I have several of them. So I have one on the bladder. I didn't know that men also have issues of being incontinent, of losing urine. The other day I saw an ad for like underwear for men that have that issue, and I was like, I didn't know that, but yeah, they have bladders too. The bladder issue in females is hatred of men. Okay, so I've only done it 3 times this class, but I'm getting phenomenal responses. I don't have to get up at night to go to the restroom. I can sleep the entire night. Now, I had precancerous cells in my bladder decades ago, and then I was fine. And as the years passed, the last maybe 8 or 10 years, then what happens to older people? You have to get up at night. I don't have to get up at night anymore. That's like really neat. I'm not taking any medication. I'm not doing any exercises. I can't walk. I used to walk an hour a day. I can't walk. And somebody sent me a testimonial. She said, I've taken the class 3 times. I no longer lose urine, because she was losing urine. Also, she said, my stomach is not swollen anymore and my back doesn't hurt. Well, I didn't know that if your bladder is not wonderful, it can give you a backache and it can give you a fuller stomach. I'm assuming lower down. I don't know, but I will ask her. I went, wow, an incredible testimony. And several people have said that it has made a phenomenal difference. They haven't finished. And they want to come back, and they are coming back, whatever. Then today I thought, okay, so if the bladder with women is hatred of men, and it is, then in men, it's hatred of women. Okay. I've never, 50 years ago, remember I'm old, 50 years ago, nobody had to wear special underwear because they were losing urine. So I think if we ask some specialists, they would say, oh, yes, it's augmenting a lot. It's probably the lifestyle because people are sitting. Well, these people are still sitting. They're just taking the class, they're doing the mantra. And I am cutting the implants in the bladder. I'm cutting the implants, the matrix implants, and I'm taking out those new parasites that are god awful, and then anything else that I find. But basically, those are the two things. And then the mantra having to do with hating men. And when they get men there, I will be hating women. And then today I went, well, this has got to be part of the repair of the issue of population collapse. Because if you can remove that, it's got to make it so much, it's got to make a huge difference. And then I remember the Buddhist monks do ceremonies. They're called initiations. And so the trick is to ask them which are the initiations having to do with sexuality, the tantric monks. And those are ceremonies in which they change your frequency with one ceremony. Now, I don't think they change your life, but in other words, I'm already getting the package together of things, none of which involves very much cost at all, other than I need to bring those monks in. So I'm putting this out there to whoever powerful players are out there, Trump, Elon, whoever else that wants to help address this issue. I need to bring them in. And it can't just be bringing monks. We already have monks here that are great. I'm talking very specifically tantric monks. I'm talking very specifically to particular. So it's not just any monk. But I think I'm going to be able to get that program together. And I think it will and I'm going to start next week to do these classes having to do with sex, removing the blocks to sexuality. And I want to tell you that when they show that these young people that are murdering are trans, that is not surprising to me. The worst, and here you go connected to the Satanism again and the black magic. The worst spirits that come into planet Earth, even the Catholic Church does it, are the incubus and the succubus. I believe they come from Orion. The trick of the matter is those are the ones associated with sexuality. So the whole thing of finding out how do they come in, well, I can tell you how they come in. They come in through this portal, and this portal breaks with excess radiation and fire. So we already are getting it all together, and it's simple and it's not expensive, and people don't have to leave their homes. All of that I've done. The first time I wanted to do it because everything I do with my group is online. So I was working with I brought in the monks 7 times, tons of money. And then I said, I want to do this particular ceremony. I want to do it online. And we don't do that. Why don't you do that? Well, we just don't do that. I said, okay, well, let's talk about doing it. Anyway, there was back and forth. And of course, I'm really pushy. And what do I care what tradition is, because tradition has gotten us exactly where we're at today. And we need to get out of this mess. And we're going into a new world. So I continued, and they finally agreed. We did it online. We actually it was a ton of money that we brought in. And then I reduced the prices dramatically. I think it was like 100 people for $100 a piece. It doesn't need to be that at all. Actually, if somebody is funding it, it doesn't have to be basically anything. And there are ceremonies that change your frequency. So getting the initiations by the proper level monks, okay, that's the trick. Because the Catholic Church has priests that do ceremonies for the dead. And for years, I was really very rude. If I met anybody who was a Catholic priest, I would say, what is the matter with you guys with your ceremonies for the dead, your masses for the dead? And I see all these Hispanic souls flying around, and I know they did at least 3, 4, 5 ceremonies by the church for their loved ones, and that person is still floating around the other dimensions. What's going on? And of course, nobody could ever answer that. They didn't have the focused intention. They probably didn't even believe in it. So I think we're going to be able to handle this, and it's going to be easy. And it has to do with knowledge, and then it has to do with spreading knowledge and sharing the knowledge. And you have to remember that sexuality is in the same energy center as manifestation and as joy. The name of that energy center, I don't know if it's, I'm assuming it's Hinduism. It means joy. That smile that people have when they start a sexual relationship and they're savoring it, that very special smile, that's from that energy center, and it has to do with sex. So if you cut out the sex, you're cutting out the joy. It's where joy is generated in human beings. We're going to take, I would have said, we got to take care of this. We're going to take care of this. It's a little bit of creativity, some work, and funding, and we're going to take care of this. And then, of course, the knowledge has to be passed on to everybody else. It's not just for a select group. And it doesn't have to be. That's the tantric thing, is just a very small group, is very intense. But we're not going to be teaching that. We're going to be using some of their knowledge and some of their people to get where we want to go, which is to address the issue of population collapse. And if somebody wants to stand up and say, it has nothing to do with sex, then you know what? I have a bridge, a castle, a dream that I'm going to sell you. How can you say that? How can you possibly take yourself seriously and say that population collapse has nothing to do with sex? I finished. So we're going to use my new sensory music video that everybody's loving. It's just icebergs, because we need to cool down. And as I said, I got over 50 people today on X. Oh my God. Listening and looking at it, because the images also reduce the fire. So, and it is for world peace. So we're going to do that. And we can do it only for 5 minutes. Or we can do it for 10 minutes. I don't know how long. Let's just do it 7 minutes. Okay? And I will be looking at my notes in case I forgot something that's real important. Before we go in, I want to say that the people that are trying to get at me, the Cuban mafia, they have 3 of them, maybe 2, that live in a building on Coral Gables, 1 Alhambra. That's the address of the building. And they're older men, that old group from the Bay of Pigs. They spent the day trying to get me to want a hamburger from the restaurant at the corner of my home. And I was thinking, God, I'd really like that. And then I could get something for my dog. And then I went, wait a second. And I realized that they're trying to influence me. Why do I say this? Because they need to know that and then I need for the people who tried to protect me to know that. But I also want to teach you that it is so easy to sway people and to have them think it was their own idea. Like when the young people kill, you got a trans person, that means that they are messed up, having to do with spiritual attachments. They have incubus and succubus. Why? Because there's a lot of shame in this whole thing having to do with sex change. And there's a lot of frustration. And that opens the door to that. So let's go. dive into the water to cool off. Isn't that cute? Yoda looking over my shoulder. Oh my goodness. Okay, so did you know that the dolphins told us we have to put coconut oil every day on our belly button? The belly button is a portal, and those vicious incubus and succubus, everybody involved with Diddy, all the sex trafficking, all those people are full of those particular type spirits. They reside in the person in the second chakra, having to do with sexuality. Second chakra loves the vibration of coconut. Coconut is very much a sensual, sexual scent. So then that's another thing to put on the list for people to do, to have an entire nation and eventually the planet recuperate their ability to reproduce themselves and not have population collapse. And then, of course, the frequencies and the element associated with sexuality is water, the element of water. Oh, we didn't need water bottles 30 years ago, and we seem to have been functioning well sexually. Today, everybody needs water, everybody's dehydrated, which means the energy center that generates joy and sexuality is dehydrated. Huh? So it's just piecing all of this stuff together. I am my handler and that guy that's in a corner crying. I believe that they are in an office across the street from, not in one Alhambra. That's a yeah. I didn't put this. No, where is it? There's a Hyatt on Alhambra. Darn it! It is on 50 Alhambra Plaza. Across the street is where my handler has been for weeks. Now, I can always make a mistake. I did once in 1969. This could be a mistake. I don't think so. And he's holed up in a place that is not an apartment. Okay? So I'm told it smells like hell there. And then the other guy is in a corner in that same place because he's like the little flunky, the little robot of my handler. But look what I put before and I didn't realize. Oh, those are the three old men. I guess I never put up the thing about Alhambra. I was telling you about these three old men. There may be two at this point. One I may have moved or not here anymore. They have apartments in one Alhambra. And then I looked up the Hyatt, which is across the street from this building, and it is 50 Alhambra. In other words, they're like a block away from each other. So that makes total sense. And I hadn't put it together until I went to share it with you. So can we contact the mayor of Coral Gables? He's not going to want this happening under his watch unless he's friends with him. And let's get these people moved out. Let's make them super uncomfortable so that the nice people can be okay. Okay, that's it. I'm very excited about this whole protocol. And it has to be to prevent population collapse because you can't do it for sex because then people will start screaming because for some reason we can't talk about sex. It's going to kill us. It's going to take the planet down, but we can't talk about it. It's killing our kids. Come on.